Hi, my name is Kate McMahon, and thank you for joining me today. I am very excited to introduce you to our guests. They are the leaders in Cape Cod real estate. And first, I'd like to introduce everybody. We have Annie Blatz, who's the president-elect of the Cape Cod and Islands Association of Realtors, and also the branch executive with Kinlan Grover for the Mid-Cape area. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Kate. Thank you for having me.
And Greg, good to see you. Greg is the 2020 president of the Cape Cod and Islands Association of Realtors, and he is the vice president and manager of Sotheby's International Realty here on the Cape.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Ryan Castle. He is the CEO of the Cape Cod and Islands Association of Realtors and the Multiple Listing Service. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Great to see you. Getting so comfortable with these Zooms. We all got online really fast. Our backgrounds are great. Greg's particularly yours. So many businesses have made some great pivots during the pandemic, and I'm really excited to hear how the real estate industry has reacted. So Ryan, can we start with you, and can you share how the market has behaved since the pandemic started?
Absolutely. So it was really a tale of 2 or 3 different markets. So starting in mid-March to the end of March, really what the realtors across the Cape did so well was hold deals together. You had buyers and sellers worried about their financial futures. They had pending contracts, pending offers, and those agents were able to get them to the closing table. And they were sitting there drinking fire hose and putting out fires left and right to get that deal done. One of the big hiccups we saw early was the smoke inspection and carbon dioxide inspection when fire departments stopped going out there, rightfully so, and doing the inspections of the houses. Then we were finally able to get, through our advocacy, get the governor to defer it to the buyer side, and that really allowed the closings to continue again. And so really the first month was getting closings to the closing table. Rightfully so, buyers were more skeptical. They weren't going out and looking at properties necessarily. So we saw a real slowdown in the marketplace in April. Then starting about May 17th, the data shows we saw a real uptick and a drastic uptick in the amount of homes going under contract week by week compared to that same week last year. And so right now we're seeing about a 50% uptick in homes under contract. And the real question going forward was, are these borrowed from April and earlier in May, or is this a real interest in Cape Cod real estate rebounding? And that's what I think we'll be looking at for the future.
That's awesome. And how has the market reacted to the lifting of the restrictions? Is that why you saw the uptick on May 17th?
I don't think so. I think our members had adjusted pretty well to how to do it. I think buyers just got more comfortable in the situation they were in, whether the health data showed better for them to be able to go out there, or they just got to a spot where they could do it. But I think it did have some correlation with the feeling of the easing of restrictions, even though there weren't actual restrictions being eased.
Right, right. Greg or Annie, or both of you, could you please share what your agents and brokers are seeing in the market today?
I'll defer to Annie first. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. I think our agents are finding that people really want to buy a home on Cape Cod. They are eager to see a house on short notice. They understand that they are competing with other buyers. The agents are accommodating them. So we are seeing a huge interest in buying quickly. We're seeing a lot of cash offers, and people want to buy and get in the homes now.
That's great. your realtors had to make big changes to keep their customers safe?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is I think when Ryan said there were 4 or 5 different stages to this, that's been the biggest thing that the realtors and our clients have had to deal with. We started off with not really knowing if we could even get a transaction to the next stage in the last weeks of March. And then we had to pull all of these resources digital that required vendors. We still needed photographers to create a virtual walkthrough. We still needed people to get access to houses, even when we were at the height of our most secure lockdowns and stay-at-home orders. And then different people started to feel more comfortable either allowing realtors to come back into houses or allowing photographers and videographers to come back into houses. And so the big difference we've seen is, each stage we either had to prepare with our vendors ahead of time to make sure they had great protocols so that they weren't inadvertently bringing something into a house, or we needed to, for sellers who still really, really wanted to sell during this time period, either they had a financial need or a lifestyle need or a personal family need, we needed to find some way to let the world in without letting all of the dangers in that came. And so I think at the brokerage level, and with a lot of help from Ryan at the Cape and Island Association of Realtors, but also our national and our regional partners, we did a lot of training early on just for our industry on what does it mean to provide access to a house today without also bringing in some of the dangers of the outside world. And so we've probably done more education and more shifting as an industry in the past 15 weeks than I've seen in the 15 years that I've been in the industry. And so it's been remarkable how we've added new skill sets through all this. And I think those will pay dividends when it's a snowstorm in February and people might not want to come down to the Cape to look at houses. But now we have a great comfort level with letting them see houses in other ways. Once the public health crisis is over, we'll still use a lot. It's valuable lessons learned through this that I think will help us move forward in a new way.
Absolutely, I agree. We work with Harwich Junior Theater, and they pivoted real quickly to classes online, and they have had tremendous success. I'm sure you guys have seen what Katuitt Center for the Arts is doing. A lot of these organizations are really stepping up. We're working with the Arts Foundation. They'll be coming into the studio, and we will be helping them produce their TD Bank series. And the one thing that, Greg, you mentioned, which I think is so important, that these changes occurred really quickly and people were willing to ramp up, right? Because the majority of them, it's their livelihood. So frankly, I think it's pretty cool to see how we have been using technology. And that brings me to another question. Ryan, can I ask this of you? I know that MLS, you had to make some big changes in regards to virtual open houses, broker tours, showings, etc. How was that transition?
Yeah, so really quickly, we launched the ability for an agent to do virtual open houses. And really, it's a concept when you think about it, probably should have been around for the last 5 or 6 years. But, real estate, like most industries, is slow to evolve until it has to. And then, so I think our technology really has moved probably 10 years in the last 3 months. And so with that is virtual open houses. And I think Greg and Annie can talk a little bit about the best practices they're seeing, but I think agents are experimenting when and how to do virtual open house. And can that live in the future with the live in-person open house? And I think there's a role for all of it in the future. And so ability for them to be able to be live at the house and be able to walk buyers through at a certain time on a platform, things like that. I think we saw a lot of people experimenting, trying to do it at the same regular times you would traditionally have seen an open house, a live open house, and that probably wouldn't work for a virtual open house. And so I think people were experimenting and testing things, and I think some have really nailed it.
That's awesome. And then I think you had a lot of support from your national organizations maybe Annie, you can answer this. Was that something that brokers and the agents were able to take part of as well?
Well, the National Association of Realtors did put out protocols and guidelines for the real estate business, as did our state association. They were very proactive in working with the governor, first of all, to be sure that we were classified as an essential business. And the guidelines that were set forth, and frankly, a lot of it was moral support at the local, the state, and the national level to tell us it's okay to do our business and the consumer needs us. And we were able to go forth and do it. And, you know, one of the things in our business, and especially here on the Cape, that helped us, that a lot of our houses were empty. And that was hugely helpful for us here on the Cape. That might not have been the case in other areas. And in addition to that, in our business, our agents are used to working from home. They don't have to be in the office to work. And as an industry, that made it easier for us than some businesses. And of course, all of our organizations, local, state, and national, were providing enormous amounts of education, and information that we could access online.
And one of the big things our National Association did was make sure our members were taken care of in March and April and May financially as well through the government, through the CARES Act, right? The advocacy through the CARES Act of making sure we're in a unique business where we're independent contractors. And so independent contractors were, because of the advocacy work of our National Association, able to take part in pandemic unemployment assistance. We're able to get PPP loans and other things like that, that I've talked to countless realtors around the Cape who've accessed both programs, and we're able to help pay their mortgage, survive during that time for now what we expect to be a really good closings in July, August, and September, based on the great market activity now, but after really drying up activity in April, May, and probably for most of June for closings.
And another great thing just on that, I mean, when I mercifully finally got out and got my hair cut a couple of weeks ago for the first time since February, my barber had taken advantage of some of those programs too. And you think the economic impact that has on all of the businesses. You know, Cape Cod's not the most traditional employment workforce base when it comes to, you know, comparing us to the rest of Massachusetts. We have a lot of people who work as independent contractors in different industries. And the work that our National Association did in particular to get this, obviously for the 1 million plus in the United States, was great, but it wasn't just a realtor only program. I mean, our barbers, other people, you know, people who were working in nail salons, people who work even as landscapers and other things that are sometimes independent contractor based businesses, were able to get access to this money in a way that was, of course, super important to our industry, but also economy wide here on the Cape and Islands, which I think is
Yes,
important.
I agree. So I've noticed in the last couple of weeks that there's been more open house signs popping up around my neighborhood. And then it seems like a few days later, there's a pending sign or a sold sign. So, which is awesome for all of us, isn't it? But I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about these open houses. You know, we went from talking about the virtual open houses to now these homes physically being open. Can you share anything about how we're keeping not only homeowners safe, but also the buyers?
Yeah, so each brokerage is setting their own protocols based on probably a template we provided out about how to do this. And so I'll let Annie walk through what they're doing with their open houses, and Greg can too. But they're both taking really good care of trying to make sure that an open house is not done the way an open house was always done. So when you see those signs, don't be scared.
Well, I expected you all to keep everybody safe. Do Annie or Greg, you want to share any of those details right now?
Sure. Well, you know, for a while we didn't choose to do open houses, although they were never totally banned, but it just didn't seem like it was appropriate for several weeks. And then when we sort of felt that we could go ahead and the association gave us these protocols and we tightened them up with some at a company level too, things like limiting the number of people in the house at one time. In most cases, we like to have at least 2 agents at the open house, one outside to make sure crowd control is maintained, and one on the inside to protect the house and tell the guests about the features. We require face masks. We supply gloves and either booties at the door or ask people to remove their shoes. We turn on all the lights and open the closet doors so that they don't have to touch anything. We want to really limit the amount of physical contact the open house visitors would have with the property. And the owners have been pretty responsive and comfortable with having people enter their home that way. And they've been busy. The open houses have been quite busy.
That's great.
I mean, I would say the other piece to add to that is, you know, I don't think any of us knew that we were going to be planning on sourcing personal protective equipment for the entire second quarter of our year, but we're struggling like every other industry is. We're relying on the public to show up kind of under the honor system and stay away if they should be staying away or if there's any risk. I've heard of a few close calls out there early on in the process that thankfully haven't amounted to any health issue, but we still are making available and stressing that the virtual option is still the preferred option in so many ways. And we can almost do it on demand at this point. As Ryan said, people have it down to a science now where if you maybe don't want to take 11 o'clock on a Saturday to go into somebody else's house, but you want to see it at 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon, it's a lot easier to at least do those initial showings. And one of the big trends we've seen emerge from this is, you know, the National Association of Realtors studies these things, and it was 8, 9, 10, even 12 properties that a person would look like before a consumer would look at before making a buying decision. Now that's down to about 3 or 4 properties on average, because people have made a lot more detailed decisions through the virtual pieces, and then they're only walking into those houses or those open houses that are their actual, I'm possibly going to buy this today. So there's a lot less browsing going on, which limits the crowds in some ways. And we tell all of our realtors and all of our clients, like, if there's any doubt, if you're feeling unsafe in any way, look, we're just going to shut the doors and we're going to say we have to do this a different way, because safety is key for, these are homes, these are people's lives, and we can always schedule showing some other way, some other time, but we need to take safety first.
Yeah. Safety is paramount right now. Definitely is. So we also have short-term rentals here on the Cape that are a big part of our community. And I wanted to learn a little bit, maybe Ryan, you could start us off with what the association has done to ensure that rentals are safe and clean for our visitors.
Yeah, so short-term rentals started a short time ago, allowed by the governor when lodging opened up in general to leisure lodging. There was real restrictions on it prior that had to be for emergency regions. And so what we've done as an association is launch a new website called safesummer2020.com that really has a checklist and guidance to owners and operators of short-term rentals to say, here's how you should take the best CDC guidance and the best lodging protocols from the state, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, put them together and be even more comprehensive than what the state's mandating for lodging operators, and saying, here's what you should be doing on a short-term rental. Here's how you should be cleaning it. Here's how much time you should be leaving between people checking in and checking out. Here's how to implement contactless check-in or curbside check-in services, things of that nature, and really try to present a common holistic view of how the industry is adapting and adopting and best practices out there to make sure that when people come to the Cape this year, they have a safe stay and the owners feel safe, the guests feel safe, and we use short-term rentals as they have traditionally been done on the Cape to spur the entire Cape Cod economy back.
Yeah, and there's been so much traffic. It's been great to see. People are obviously feeling very comfortable that we are doing it the right way here on the Cape. What else have the agents been working on in regards to short-term rentals? Has there been any changes for that side of the transaction?
Yeah, I mean,
Greg, you want to talk about the trend that you're seeing?
yeah. So I mean, that side, typically the short-term rental season would have been booked in late fall or over the winter, and so initially agents were facing the, do we cancel contracts? Can we cancel contracts? What can people travel? Can they not travel? Once it became clear towards the end of April or early May that there would be some sort of stays allowed, we then had to figure out what was available, what wasn't available. What ended up happening almost right as the pandemic started is we had people calling us saying, can I come for 3 months? Can I come for 15 weeks, 16 weeks, 17 weeks, which we typically have people asking us if they can come for 7 days, or if they can come for maybe 2 weeks. There are definitely a rarer few who stay a month, but we definitely saw what were traditionally short-term rentals, which are 31 days or shorter, turn into these mid-range, longer-term occupancy periods, and that was good in some sense. There was some security for the homeowner that someone would be in their home, and there was some security for the agent that there was a way to keep the business and the industry moving forward. But now we have a lot of people who are seeking those 1 week stays, who are desperate to find properties, and they're still occupied by people who don't need to go back to their traditional office space maybe in September or October.
Mm-hmm.
And now some of those people are becoming our buyers because they realize they've been here for 3 months and hey, this isn't so bad. They can get their work done. Their family's adapted to it. And now we're getting a whole new wave of new home buyers and new longer term residents to the Cape. So that's definitely, I think the industry at one point was trending towards, can we take 1 week and make it 3 or 4 day stays or longer weekends? And now it's flipped all the way back around. And now we're saying, can we make them 5, 6, 7, 8 to 10 week stays? So that's been an interesting shift. It's going to be fascinating. I think all of us would agree that none of us have a crystal ball, but next March and April is going to be an amazingly fascinating time if you're a real estate watcher, because seeing how many of these trends become permanent to our lifestyles is going to be one of the more interesting things to look back on, because we're seeing people stay for a long time now, which is great. It's great for our economy. It's great for our restaurant owners who are trying to make it happen, our small business, our shops that are just struggling now to get people back in. And they've now got this built-in base of people who've been here for 3 months, desperate to get into that place that they've been waiting for so long.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is going to be fascinating to see the changes that are made in our business lives going forward, because so many of us have been able to pretty easily shift and continue to do our work. So it's going to be very interesting.
Our summer visitors are also looking for some different features than they used to be interested in. Everyone wants to walk to the beach because the parking has been limited at a lot of our beaches. Lots of people are requesting swimming pools, and frankly, there aren't a lot of rental properties that offer swimming pools. They also want to make sure they have all their creature comforts. The accessibility to Wi-Fi has been extremely important. There can't be any lapse in their ability to go online. And I had one of my rental agents told me an interesting story this morning, that she had someone coming in for a month and they wanted to make sure the property was going to be really comfortable for them. So they bought an entire set of patio furniture, table, chairs, side chairs, umbrella, and had it shipped from Wayfair to the rental property with the intention of leaving it there after their month is over. So they're going to have a very comfortable stay on Cape Cod and the perfect property.
And make it more like home.
More like home.
Great. Well, is there anything else that you all would like to add today?
Thank you for having us. We appreciate taking the time to talk about how the real estate market's doing and the good work our members are doing across the Cape.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you all being here, and we'll definitely have to catch up, right, Greg, before next March or April, to just get an update from you all to see the additional changes that we go through.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan mentioned that Safe Summer 2020 website. That was kind of that probably came out of our notes on how to keep ourselves moving forward during all this. So I'm sure we're going to continue to learn. We're not out of the woods yet on all of the changes to our lives. So I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about, and we always enjoy the opportunity. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Kate.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.